and welcome to River Talk. Today is the 22nd of February, and we finally managed to get everyone here today. We got Ashlyn, Nick, I myself, and Zach. I'll be today's moderator, and then we'll be joined by Trey and Colin. So we're going to start off with Trump recently talked about a terrorist attack in Sweden and how he obtained that from Fox News. But we all know he always likes to state we have an ongoing war, or he does, with the media. And so I just find it very interesting. So first of all, what exactly did he state about in Sweden?
Okay, so the problem that I saw with the way he's talked about Sweden is what he was referring to is that there is a very steep incline in a lot of serious crime, like rape and assault and stuff like that. Then he called that a massive terrorist attack, which is not.
He did that indirectly.
Indirectly, right? But like, what he's referring to, and he's kind of been guilty of this for a while, is taking a headline that he likes and then mixing words about it.
Mm-hmm.
So right, like there wasn't, before he said anything, there was no singular massive terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, right after he said that there was, but that's neither here nor there.
It was a riot, but yeah, a large-scale riot.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but yeah, so what he's doing is being very, very selective in his sources.
Yeah.
And it's not like any president's ever done that before.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real.
I don't know, sometimes I always like to think of some of the stuff he says, it's like clickbait on YouTube, like,
Yeah, like he'll
some outrageous title just to make you look.
He does have a formula to his tweets and his posts.
Absolutely.
It's always some vague message about how something's either bad or good,
mm-hmm.
and then some vague message about what he'll do to fix it or make it better, and then like a one-word exclamation,
mm-hmm.
like great or sad. It's pretty entertaining.
Very interesting one. Do you have any thoughts on situations?
I was going to ask you how you felt about the President of the United States getting his headlines or his news from solely Fox News. And I quote this Donald Trump tweet, "The fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC, ABC, CBS, and CNN, is not my enemy, it is the enemy of the American people." Now what about Fox News?
I think he's just fine. I mean, I've watched CNN and MSNBC, and particularly on election night, CNN was saying, when they were referring to the states Hillary needs to win, the states we need to win. They admit they're a propaganda point for the Democratic Party, and I would rather take Fox News, which still has hosts that are anti-Trump, like Shepard Smith, Megyn Kelly before she quit, among others, than over a media outlet that's blatantly pro-Democratic Party, anti-Trump.
So you're okay with Fox
Absolutely.
News being the only source
Yes.
of information?
I believe all others are unreliable.
Okay, I'll take a spin at that because I think I know what you want to talk about. So like, the problem that I see with him saying something like that is he's ultimately admitting that he's not even going to hear a voice of opposition. The thing that I find okay with that though is that he's speaking out. He's speaking out in a way largely that got him elected. He's speaking out against a largely liberal media. I mean, you think about all the sources you just listed. That's like 4 or 5 or 6 humongous media sources compared to like 1, 2, maybe 3 right-wing sources. So I think that's what he's intending to involve. Again, I'm not the voice of Trump here, but.
Now, do you think he's only going with Fox News only because he thinks it's a legitimate news source, or do you think it's because it's a network that mostly doesn't criticize him compared to all the other, liberally biased ones that continually try to criticize him and undermine him?
Well, I can say for someone who watches Fox News almost exclusively, that's what I watch on TV. I can say during the day, the people who run like the day-to-day like actual headlines, they're pretty balanced. Every now and then, like I know it's just like after a mass shooting, there was one. Some of them will tend to take the side of the NRA typically, but most of the time they're pretty balanced. They'll hit both sides with typical questions. But when it comes to at night, when they have their opinion panelists, Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, absolutely they are Trump mouthpieces. But I think that's the point. So I would say Fox is roughly half and half when it comes to balance. During the day, you have your unbiased news, and at night, it's all just opinion shtick. So that's the way I see it.
I also think that part of the reason he's come out so blatantly against all these news media sources is Because I mean, you go back to even like 2015, and you can find headlines on headlines from CNN, NBC, MSNBC, and then even more like kind of Metro, if you want to call them, sources of like BuzzFeed and Fox, and of just this Trump bigot, racist meltdown. Literally Hitler. I mean, just nobody's going to endorse something that has compared them to Hitler before. You know what I mean? That's not me saying that rejecting other news sources is okay, but I can see where he's coming from.
Well, going back to what you said, that during the day they're balanced and fair, which is correct for everyone at one point in time. Not everything somebody says is biased towards one side or the other. Now, you just said yourself that at night it's strictly opinionated. Mm-hmm. And if that's the only thing that Trump's paying attention to, you're saying is that that's okay for Trump to get his news from strictly opinionated right-wing Fox?
Well, I can't say for certain he only watches clearly he does, because Tucker Carlson ran the story on Sweden, which is where he got that remark, which admittedly was a gaffe the way he worded it at that speech in Florida. But I can't say exclusively that he gets his news from at night, the opinion.
No, but that's the one source we...
It's the one we know about, yes, I will concede that.
We also see a disappearance of Kellyanne Conway, one of the major spokesmen for Donald Trump, at least during the campaign, and I think she was appointed to a position to...
yeah, she was the campaign manager for a long time, yeah.
She get appointed to a White House position.
I don't know, I haven't read up on that. I haven't heard that.
No, we all know Kellyanne Conway is a very smart woman, but why do you think just sudden disappearance and lack of appearances lately?
A couple gaffes lately.
A couple gaps?
Yeah, I think the thing that people kind of have to remember is just as, I'm trying to think of how I want to word this, there's never going to be a perfect administration, just like there's never going to be a perfect president. And I know that Donald Trump is kind of historically the most unpopular president we've ever had, at least on election day. Now he's got approval ratings of 85% of Republicans, but that's whatever. So I think with things like Kellyanne Conway kind of shifting out of view, and the shady thing with Flynn, I don't know. It's a very baffling kind of situation.
Donald Trump, I think, is currently revising his immigration executive order, travel ban, sorry, it's immigration, not the travel ban, but he's reforming it to allow people from the Dreamer program to still be able to get citizenship inside the United States, even though they're illegal immigrants and stuff like that, which sadly passed under Obama. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's a good compromise between both sides. I think as long as people who are affiliated with the DREAM Act, as long as they haven't done any violent crimes, I think it's a good way to just get the issue settled and move on to bigger and better things like the economy and such.
Should we break?
All right. So now I want to take a look at how Europe and the United States handles immigration, because we've been seeing a lot with the Syrian civil war and ISIS, displacing millions of people. And a lot of those people, see Europe as really the next gateway to maybe getting a better life, and how Europeans handle the situation of mass immigration, which, like Germany, they took in let's say 1 million people. But here's the problem, a lot of these European countries don't actually plan for all these people, where they're going to put them. They just kind of push them in massive, shanty towns, whatever you want to call them. While the United States, we try to find ways, to be sure they get housing and federal aid for whatever they might need until they ever, actually get a stable job or income. What be now? Why do you think that Europe seems to always have this problem with, they want to be nice and let these people in, but they don't seem to have a plan of actually helping them. They just kind of throw them up.
Well, I mean, you can look at Brexit as a result of this kind of unchecked kind of chaos. I mean, part of it's a large part of it's geography. I mean, Europe's, it's all, close together. and I imagine it's much harder to track movement of that size in that kind of area. But I mean, like I said, like look at Brexit. I mean, obviously countries are starting to get wary of free flow and open borders and stuff like that. And I think that's a good thing to start to tighten up the borders, because I mean, you can look at Germany, you can look at Sweden now. I mean, when so many people go unchecked, there's bound to be, you know, chaos and a spike in crime like that.
And do you also think that is because of the spike of crime because European governments don't actually give them an opportunity to settle in? Or is it just because, you know, these people, they're here and they just want to make a big ruckus because they're coming to some new country and they want it to kind of look like the country they came from before, terrorism took over?
Yeah, I think part of that is because they're coming from no structure, they have no structure to come to. So I think that is part of it. I think the other part of it is, I don't ever want to assume anything about any particular person or group of people, but like when you have so many people coming in so unchecked with zero regulation whatsoever, there's bound to be bad people to come in, and when those bad people have opportunities to harm good people, I mean, it's not rocket science.
All right, so welcome back. We just left off with the subject of immigration, and we are now shifting the conversation towards guns and gun control, who should have access, who shouldn't. And you were just talking about a Obama-era executive order, I believe.
Yes.
What did the bill, or the
Well,
order entail, I should
that
say?
prevented anybody, I guess, was it who was receiving government benefits that weren't mentally capable of managing their own welfare from owning a gun. And now the Republicans are trying to repeal that and allow these people to own a weapon, which I think is totally wrong. Now, I'm not, like I said before, I'm not trying to take guns away from everybody. I feel that it's the Second Amendment, right? The right to bear arms. You should have the right to bear arms. But if you're not mentally stable enough to manage a simple thing such as money, you shouldn't be able to have and own and use a weapon that can kill people.
Well, the way I see it, Obama's executive order was much too broad when it covered that. With the aging population can have quite a few different, just for lack of a better word, situations that would keep them from being able to handle finances and things of the sort. And when you ban people like that from using guns, you're denying a lot of older folks. Just for an example, older people. I know other people collect Social Security, but beside the point. But you can have someone who maybe has like a severe case of Parkinson's and won't be able to effectively manage their money. But at the same time, if they go to a shooting range, they can still break a clay pigeon or shoot a piece of paper from a long distance away if they're still supervised and such. So I think that revoking Second Amendment rights over something so broad without getting into more nitty-gritty details is absolutely wrong and
discriminatory. The fact of the matter is, not everywhere that person has a gun is a gun range. Mm-hmm. And what's happening from accidentally, with the shaking from, there goes the trigger and somebody's dead now. You're dead. Okay, your grandfather, let's just say, I don't know if he's alive or whatever, he has Parkinson's.
He does have Parkinson's.
Okay. Does he have uncontrollable shaking?
Yes.
Okay, do you want him pointing a gun at you?
He would never do that. He's
but
been
doesn't
matter.
That's not what I asked. If he was pointing a gun at you, would you still want him to have a gun? Knowing very well that his tremors could accidentally fire that weapon into your chest and that would be fatal.
I don't see that situation ever happening, and I feel it's much too broad. So yes, I would say he should be able to still do that.
So you are right with that possibility happening?
Yes, because it'd be very rare, and accidents do happen. That's no reason to take away a huge portion of a sizable portion of the population's Second Amendment rights away. They haven't done anything wrong before. We can't just take it away because possibly they could do something.
Well, that's like giving guns to children. There's been just a few cases of kids accidentally shooting, so why can't
that's because the person with them obviously wasn't paying good enough attention. I mean, in those situations, you have to be a responsible gun owner. You have to be responsible whenever you're handling a firearm. A couple instances of people not being responsible should not lead to a blanket ban for a portion of the population.
So you're proving my point that we should give guns to little kids. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but so does giving guns to someone who can't even hold the firearm correctly.
Well,
And it's dangerous.
I think the executive order itself, though, I think the point that Colin's trying to make is that it's too vague.
Yeah.
Is that
It needs to be more detailed.
That's fine. But the way you're talking to me is you just want it completely gone. You want anybody who's able to hold a gun to have a gun, besides children, obviously.
Well, no. Well, I mean, I fired a gun when I was 8, and I had my grandfather, the one with Parkinson's, my father, and I think my other grandpa was there too. They were all making sure that I was handling it right. It's not an issue of government mandate. It's an issue of people, and no government mandate. The government doesn't have any business in that. One accident does not prove that an entire population should lose their gun rights. That's the argument. I'm not saying kids need to have guns. I'm saying that it mainly comes down to the individual.
So, totally sidetracking here. Couldn't you use that argument that just a few incidents of terrorism shouldn't be grounds for a whole travel ban? That's the same argument you're using against me with the gun. Just one incident with the gun shouldn't allow for a whole ban on people having
Travel isn't a constitutional right, though. Firearms are. The Second Amendment says that the rights of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. There is nothing in the Constitution that says the rights of people to come into our country unfettered and unfiltered shall not be infringed.
So let's just throw away the whole unable to handle their money thing. You want everybody, including people who are mentally unstable, to have guns.
I never said that. I said,
No, but having that, agreeing upon that is still infringing on a Second Amendment right for people to have guns. If anybody whatsoever.
For people like psychosis and people who are criminals, people with that history, that can be proven in court.
But still, they have a constitutional right to have a gun. That's what you're saying. Is we're infringing.
Felons don't.
Felons don't have constitutional right to a weapon.
Okay.
Neither is someone who's been committed to a mental asylum.
That's still infringing upon rights, isn't it?
No, they void their rights when they enter the court system.
But the person who's psychotic doesn't understand what they're doing. They don't understand by going psycho.
If it's gotten to the point where they've been committed, then that's just there's no way around that.
If I can offer a middle ground, I think Obama's executive order.
I'm not saying that's the cure-all for everything either.
No. I think what you're saying, and I think what you're saying are closer to the truth than you realize. So, the executive order I think is too vague. I agree with Colin, but I agree with you in saying that I don't think that certain people. No, okay, because see, this is I'm glad we're having this discussion. So, what you're saying is, and I don't want to miscategorize you, but what you're saying is somebody who can't lift up a grocery bag probably shouldn't have access to guns.
They wouldn't be able to anyway.
Well, yeah.
Right.
No, but I'm talking like someone like his grandfather that it's with the tremors, it's just bound to happen that there's an accident at some point.
I've taken my grandpa since he's had Parkinson's to the shooting range multiple times. There hasn't been a single accident.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
In fact, he's a marksman.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, well, that's one person. That's your grandfather.
Right, but then earlier you brought up the example of unsupervised kids shooting their parent. Like I think I know one of the instances you're referring to was a couple years ago in a Walmart. Like a 2-year-old managed to get the G19 out of his mom's purse and shot her dead. Right, but like if you do any sort of statistical research, I mean, more people die from shark attacks than by being shot by their toddler. So I mean, the data is just not there to support that people, like not most people should be able to purchase and operate firearms.
Well, when's the last time you fired a gun that wasn't with someone?
When's the last time I fired a
No,
gun?
his grandfather.
Oh.
Not often because he can't drive, but he can still operate a firearm effectively. I can attest to that.
And that's.
I mean, I think
maybe there needs to be some sort of.
needs to be some sort of specific. The issue that I have with it is that it's too vague. Is that it needs to be more specific. Is that, I mean, obviously I'm okay with background checks for purchasing guns. I mean, that's just not background checks for everybody, right?
Common sense.
Common sense gun control, right?
Oh yeah, you don't want someone who's
Right. I think the borderline issue is that it's too vague.
But what I'm saying though is like somebody like your grandfather would be able to pass a test that was put forth to be able to handle a gun correctly.
Mm-hmm. And that's entirely fair, but the Obama executive order just
No, I know. I'm not saying his executive order is, it's something I agree upon completely, but I feel like something similar with being able to, it's just like testing out of a college course. Like you're banned from having a gun if you can't manage your own money, but if you can prove that you can handle a gun, then you should be able to get a gun.
That's fair enough, yeah.
And I feel like something.
Shouldn't that also warrant a psychological evaluation as well?
If you want, I don't see a problem with having a background check, a psychological evaluation, and a gun safety test or whatever you want to call it to be able to handle a gun.
I took a gun safety test before I got mine, so.
Which is fine if you can prove that you don't have no history of being, I don't know,